The emergency beacon cut through the darkness of space like a scream. Ambassador Veltar watched the message repeat itself on every frequency, broadcasting the same plea across the galaxy. 3 words that carried the weight of his entire civilization. Help us, please. His ship, the Morning Light, drifted among the wreckage of what used to be the Morvani Third Fleet. Twisted metal and frozen bodies floated past the viewport, silent witnesses to another crushing defeat. The Krex Dominion had struck again, this time hitting the orbital defense platforms around Kepler 7. 15,000 souls lost in less than 4 hours. Veltar's 4 arms trembled as he composed the formal request to the Galactic Council. His species had evolved from peaceful tree dwellers, their crystalline skin designed to blend with forest light, not reflect the harsh glow of burning starships. Violence was not in their nature, but survival demanded they learn it quickly. Ambassador, his aide whispered, the council chambers are ready for your transmission. The holographic display activated, showing the great circular chamber where representatives from 47 species gathered. Some floated in environmental suits, others stood on pedestals designed for their unique biology. All of them looked tired. The war had been dragging on for 3 years now, and everyone felt the strain. Honored Council, Veltar began, his voice steady despite the fear gnawing at his hearts. The Morvani Federation formally requests immediate military assistance under Article 7 of the Mutual Defense Compact. Our situation has become desperate. A ripple of movement passed through the assembly. The Thorani delegate, a massive creature covered in battle scars, leaned forward with interest. The insectoid hive queens clicked their mandibles in what might have been sympathy. The ancient ethereals remained perfectly still as they had for the past 1,000 years. The Krex Dominion has conquered 18 of our outer colonies, Veltar continued, displaying tactical maps that showed red zones spreading like an infection across Morvani space. They enslave our people, strip our worlds bare, and move on to the next target. Our defense fleets cannot match their numbers. Our technology means nothing against their overwhelming force. War Chief Brutus of the Thorani Empire stood up, his voice booming across the chamber. The Thorani offer our services as always. 5,000 mercenary ships, complete with crews and weapons. The cost would be significant. Veltar's aide quickly calculated the figures. The Thorani wanted payment that would bankrupt 3 star systems. We cannot afford such terms. The Hive Queen Zephyr spoke next, her mental voice touching every mind in the chamber. Our probability calculations show a 94% chance of complete Morvani extinction within 2 standard years. This outcome is statistically certain without outside intervention. Perhaps, the lead ethereal said in their ancient musical language, this is simply the natural order. All species must face their tests. Some survive, others do not. Veltar felt his hope cracking. The same responses from the same species who had already refused to help. The Thorani wanted payment they could not give. The Hive Queens dealt only in cold mathematics. The ethereal spoke of cosmic balance while his people died. But then Counselor Prime Nexus, the chamber's oldest member, spoke words that changed everything. There is one member species we have not yet consulted. The humans of Sol 3. The chamber fell silent. Humanity was the newest addition to the Galactic Council, granted associate membership only 15 years earlier. Most species still regarded them as primitive newcomers, their violent history making everyone nervous. They had no great fleets, no ancient wisdom, no vast economic power. The humans are untested in galactic warfare, objected the Thorani delegate. They have barely left their home system. What could they possibly offer that our combined forces cannot provide? Veltar remembered the human ambassador he had met during the membership ceremony. A small, determined woman who had spoken about her species' desire to help protect peaceful civilizations. At the time, it had seemed like empty diplomatic language. Now it might be his only hope. We will accept aid from any willing source, Veltar announced to the chamber. The Morvani Federation formally requests assistance from the Terran Republic under the Mutual Defense Compact. Some delegates laughed. Others shook their heads in what their species considered pity. The humans were known throughout the galaxy as decent traders and surprisingly skilled diplomats, but their military capabilities were largely unknown. Their small exploration ships looked primitive compared to the gleaming vessels of older civilizations. "Very well, Counselor Prime Nexus," said with the authority of age. "The request will be transmitted to Earth immediately. Let us see what the youngest among us can offer." The meeting ended with the usual formal declarations and diplomatic niceties, but Veltar barely heard them. He remained in the chamber long, after the other delegates had departed, staring at the tactical displays that showed his civilization slowly dying. His aide approached carefully. "Ambassador, the morning reports from our remaining colonies have arrived." Veltar reviewed the data with growing despair. More worlds attacked, more ships destroyed, more of his people taken as slaves or killed outright. The Kreks moved through, Morvani space like a plague, consuming everything in their path. "How long do our analysts believe we have?" he asked. 6 months, perhaps 8, if we evacuate the outer settlements and concentrate our remaining forces around the core worlds. 6 months. His entire civilization had 6 months left unless someone somehow found a way to stop the unstoppable Kreks war machine. The greatest military powers in the galaxy had already refused to help, or demanded prices that would destroy his people even in victory. That left only Earth. A small, unremarkable world inhabited by a young species that most of the galaxy barely noticed. Their technology seemed decades behind galactic standard. Their ships were tiny compared to the massive dreadnoughts that other species fielded. They had never fought in a major galactic conflict, but they had responded to the request within hours of receiving it. Not with demands for payment or calculations of probability, but with a simple message: "We will help." Veltar closed his eyes and tried to pray to the old gods of his homeworld, the tree spirits that his ancestors had worshipped before they reached for the stars. He prayed that humanity had something the rest of the galaxy did not, some hidden strength or secret weapon that could turn the tide of a war that everyone else had already given up fighting. In 3 days, he would have his answer. The human response fleet was already en route to Morvani space. Whatever they brought with them would determine whether his civilization lived or died, whether the Kreks continued their unstoppable conquest or finally met their match. The beacon continued to broadcast into the void, carrying its desperate message to anyone who would listen. But now, for the first time in months, Veltar allowed himself to feel something other than despair. He felt hope. The message from the Galactic Council arrived during Earth's morning briefing cycle, but Admiral Stone had been expecting it for weeks. Deep space monitoring stations had tracked the Kreks expansion through intercepted communications and refugee ship testimonies. The Pentagon's Xenobiology Department had been building psychological profiles on the Dominion's leadership since first contact. Stone stood before the holographic display showing real-time feeds from the conflict zone. Burning space stations, refugee convoys fleeing across star systems, the systematic destruction of an entire civilization. Around the conference table, the Joint Chiefs studied intelligence reports that painted a grim picture of galactic warfare. "The Morvani are getting slaughtered," General Martinez said bluntly, gesturing at casualty estimates. "Their ships are designed for exploration and trade, not combat. The Kreks hit them with overwhelming force and move on before reinforcements can arrive." "What about the Kreks themselves?" Stone asked. Colonel Wright pulled up tactical analyses gathered from months of observation. "Conventional military doctrine. They rely on superior numbers and direct confrontation. Their technology is solid but unimaginative. Most importantly, they fight like everyone else in the galaxy. Formal engagements, predictable patterns, honor-bound, rules of warfare." Stone smiled grimly. That was exactly what she had hoped to hear. President Harrison joined the meeting via secure link from the White House. Her image appeared above the conference table, and Stone could see the weight of decision in her eyes. "Recommendations, Admiral?" "Ma'am, this is the scenario we've been preparing for since we joined the galactic community. We've spent 15 years studying how other species fight wars. They're stuck in the past, thinking that bigger ships and more soldiers automatically mean victory. And we know better? We know different. Human military doctrine evolved from thousands of years of warfare against other humans. We learned to be creative, adaptive, and ruthless. The galaxy fights like gentlemen. We fight to win. General Martinez leaned forward. What are you proposing? Stone activated a classified display that made everyone in the room sit up straighter. Operation Ghost Strike. We don't send a fleet to match their numbers. We don't engage in traditional space battles. We send specialists, the kind of people who can end wars without firing a single shot in open combat. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. President Harrison was the first to speak. You're talking about the Shadow Division. Yes, ma'am. 50 operators from our most elite units. Rangers, SEALs, Delta Force, Special Air Service. The best we have at asymmetric warfare. They'll deploy using our experimental stealth technology and demonstrate what human military thinking can accomplish. Defense Secretary Collins raised an eyebrow. 50 people against an invasion force of millions? 50 people who understand that wars aren't won by destroying every enemy soldier. They're won by destroying the enemy's ability to fight effectively. Their command structure, their supply lines, their morale, their will to continue. Stone pulled up historical examples from Earth's past. Special forces operations that had changed the course of entire conflicts. Small teams that had accomplished what massive armies could not. The destruction of key infrastructure that crippled entire military campaigns. The galaxy doesn't understand psychological warfare, she continued. They don't comprehend the power of fear, confusion, and uncertainty. The Kreks expect their enemies to line up in neat formations and exchange fire until someone runs out of ships. They're not prepared for enemies who strike from shadows, disappear like ghosts, and turn their own systems against them. President Harrison studied the mission parameters carefully. Casualties? Minimal on our side. We've trained for this kind of operation for decades. The Kreks won't even know we're there until it's too late. As for their casualties, Stone shrugged. That depends on how quickly their leadership decides to withdraw. And if they don't withdraw, then they'll learn why humans spent most of our history fighting each other instead of exploring the stars. We got very, very good at warfare. The discussion continued for another hour, covering logistics, political implications, and potential consequences. The Galactic Council would be watching humanity's response carefully. Some species would see this as an opportunity to judge human military capabilities. Others might view it as a test of their commitment to galactic peace. But in the end, the decision came down to a simple moral calculation. The Morvani were dying, they had asked for help. Earth could provide that help in a way that no other species could match. Approved, President Harrison said finally. Admiral, you have full authorization for Operation Ghost Strike. Show the galaxy what human military doctrine looks like. Within 6 hours, the selection process began. The Shadow Division maintained a roster of pre-approved operators from every branch of Earth's military. These were soldiers who had volunteered for the most dangerous and classified missions, understanding that their work would never be publicly acknowledged. The final team came together at a secure facility in Colorado. 50 men and women who represented the absolute pinnacle of human military training. They spoke dozens of languages, held advanced degrees in everything from engineering to psychology, and had survived selection processes that eliminated 99% of candidates. Colonel Rivera briefed them in a sterile conference room that could have been anywhere on Earth. Ladies and gentlemen, you're about to become the first humans to engage in interstellar warfare. The enemy has never faced opponents who fight the way we do. They're expecting a conventional military response, ships, battles, formal declarations. What are they getting instead? Asked Major Chen. Rivera smiled. They're getting us. 50 operators who understand that the best way to win a war is to make the enemy so afraid and confused that they surrender before the real fighting starts. The mission briefing covered everything from Krek psychology to galactic communication protocols. The operators would deploy using modified stealth ships, establish hidden bases throughout the conflict zone, and begin operations designed to cripple the Dominion's ability to maintain their conquest. Remember, Rivera concluded, The galaxy is watching. This mission will establish humanity's reputation for the next century. We succeed here, and no one will ever doubt Earth's ability to protect our allies. We fail, and the Morvani die while everyone assumes humans are too primitive to matter in galactic affairs. The operators disperse to make final preparations. Equipment checks. Personal messages to families who would never know where their loved ones had gone. Final medical examinations and psychological evaluations. Within 72 hours, 3 stealth ships departed from hidden launch facilities around Earth. Their destinations, the heart of Krek's occupied space. Their mission, to demonstrate that humanity's greatest export was not technology or culture or diplomacy. It was the refined art of warfare. The galaxy had begged Earth for aid, expecting ships and soldiers and conventional military support. Instead, they were about to receive something far more dangerous, a demonstration of what happened when evolution's most successful predators decided that a species had become a threat to their friends. The Krek's dominion was about to learn that size and strength meant nothing when facing opponents who understood that war was not about honor or fair fighting. It was about winning. The Krek's patrol never saw the human ship coming. 3 massive warships drifted through the Kepler system in perfect formation, their sensors sweeping space for any sign of Morvani resistance. Their crews felt confident and secure, protected by armor plating that could withstand direct hits from the most powerful weapons in the galaxy. 2 kilometers away, invisible to every detection system the Krek's possessed, the stealth ship Nightfall matched their course and speed. The experimental cloaking technology that surrounded the human vessel bent light and electromagnetic radiation around its hull, creating a perfect void in space that even advanced AI systems could not detect. Colonel Rivera floated in the ship's deployment bay, checking his equipment one final time. The modified combat suit looked nothing like the bulky armor worn by galactic military forces. Instead, it resembled a second skin made of adaptive materials that could shift color and texture to match any environment. The personal stealth generator, built into the suit's core, would render him completely invisible to most forms of detection. "Alpha Team, sound off," he whispered into his comm unit. 5 voices responded with practiced calm. Technical Sergeant Brown had spent 2 years studying Krek ship designs through intelligence gathered at galactic trade stations. Corporal Williams spoke fluent Kreks and could mimic their vocal patterns perfectly. The others brought specialized skills in electronics, demolitions, and close-quarters combat. "Beta Team status report," Rivera continued. Major Chen's voice came through clearly from her position near the secondary airlock. Her team would deploy to different targets throughout the system, focusing on supply convoys and communication networks. "Ready to deploy, sir? Targets acquired and approach vectors calculated." "Charlie Team?" Captain Torres confirmed his team's readiness from the 3rd deployment bay. They would establish the forward operating base on Kepler-7's moon, creating a hidden command center that could coordinate operations across multiple star systems. Rivera looked through the transparent aluminum window at the Krek's flagship Dominance. The massive dreadnought stretched for 3 kilometers, its hull bristling with weapons and sensor arrays. Somewhere inside that ship was Admiral Vexmore, the tactical genius who had orchestrated the conquest of 17 worlds. In 30 minutes, the Admiral would be dead, and the Kreks would learn their first lesson about fighting humans. "All teams, execute deployment." The airlocks opened silently, releasing 50 black-clad figures into the void. They moved through space like ghosts, using minimal thruster burns to adjust their trajectories toward the Krek's vessels. The patrol ships continued their sweep, completely unaware that death was approaching from multiple directions. Rivera's team reached the Dominance first. The flagship's hull showed obvious signs of Krek's engineering philosophy. Massive plates of armor designed to withstand direct assault, with minimal attention paid to preventing infiltration. The humans found an access port within minutes, their cutting tools slicing through metal that would have stopped conventional weapons. Inside the ship, Rivera felt like he was exploring a museum. The corridors were wide and well lit, designed for a species that valued openness and direct confrontation. Security cameras were placed in obvious locations, easily avoided by anyone with basic stealth training. Guard posts were clearly marked and operated on predictable schedules. "It's like they want to be infiltrated," Brown whispered as they moved deeper into the ship. The Kreks had evolved from herd animals on a world with few natural predators. Their entire psychology was built around strength in numbers and direct confrontation with threats. The concept of enemies who struck from shadows was completely foreign to their way of thinking. Rivera's team reached the command section without encountering a single guard. The Kreks assumed that anyone who made it onto their ship would announce themselves with weapons fire and demands for surrender. They had never faced opponents who preferred silence and precision to noise and chaos. The bridge doors opened to reveal Admiral Vexmore studying tactical displays that showed the systematic conquest of Morvani space. 24 Kreks officers worked. At control stations, their attention focused on coordinating the next phase of the invasion. Rivera activated his suit's advanced targeting system and selected his shots carefully. The weapon he carried fired projectiles smaller than needles, each one tipped with a neurotoxin specifically designed to affect Krek's physiology. The darts were completely silent and left no visible wound. Vexmore collapsed first, his massive frame hitting the deck with a sound that made the other officers turn in alarm. By the time they realized something was wrong, half the bridge crew was already falling. The survivors had just enough time to reach for their weapons before Rivera's team finished the job. "Bridge secured," Rivera reported. "Beginning Phase 2. Brown moved to the ship's main computer core while the other team members secured critical systems. The virus they uploaded would spread through the entire Kreks communication network, causing navigation errors and system failures that would take weeks to identify and correct. Meanwhile, Beta Team had reached their targets throughout the system. Major Chen's operators moved through supply convoys like invisible death, sabotaging fuel processing equipment and contaminating food stores with chemicals that would cause severe but non-fatal illness. The goal was not just to disrupt Krek's operations, but to create fear and uncertainty among their forces. Captain Torres and Charlie Team had established their base inside a natural cave system on Kepler-7's largest moon. The location provided perfect concealment while offering clear sightlines to monitor Krek's fleet movements throughout the system. Within hours, they had deployed surveillance equipment and communication relays that would give Earth real-time intelligence on enemy operations. The first signs of human presence came 12 hours after deployment. Krek's patrol ships began reporting mysterious system failures that caused them to drift off course. Supply vessels sent distress calls before going silent. Their crews found days later floating in escape pods with no memory of what had happened to their ships. Most disturbing of all were the recordings found on abandoned Kreks facilities. Human voices speaking in perfect Kreks dialect, delivering messages that seemed designed to provoke maximum psychological impact. Warnings about shapeshifters who could appear as anyone. Claims that the humans could kill without being seen or detected. Promises that no Kreks would be safe anywhere in the galaxy until they withdrew from Morvani space. War Chief Thakmor received the first reports with disbelief, then growing alarm. His species had conquered dozens of worlds through superior firepower and overwhelming numbers. They had never encountered an enemy that fought this way. "How many humans are there?" he demanded from his surviving officers. "Unknown, sir. Our intelligence suggests no more than 50 operators, but they seem to be everywhere at once." 50? Thakmor's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter or hysteria. 50 beings are terrorizing my entire invasion force? The reports continued to flood in. Command ships found their officers dead without any sign of forced entry. Weapons facilities experienced mysterious explosions that destroyed months of supplies. Entire battalions reported morale problems as soldiers became afraid to patrol alone or sleep in their quarters. The humans had introduced concepts that the Kreks military had never had to consider. Asymmetric warfare, psychological operations. The understanding that destroying an enemy's will to fight was more effective than destroying their ability to fight. Rivera monitored the results from his hidden command post, watching as Krek's fleet movements became increasingly erratic and defensive. The enemy was starting to see threats everywhere, even when his teams were systems away. Fear was spreading faster than any virus, carried by survivors' accounts and official reports that painted humans as invisible demons who could strike anywhere at any time. The second phase of the operation was ready to begin. The Kreks had learned that humans were dangerous opponents who didn't follow the rules of civilized warfare. Now they were about to discover just how dangerous humans could be when they stopped holding back. The real war was about to start, and the galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. General Caxmore had commanded Krek's military forces for 23 years. He had conquered 12 worlds, crushed 7 rebellions, and earned the respect of every warrior in the Dominion. But now, for the first time in his career, he was afraid. Kree. Latest casualty reports lay scattered across his command table like accusations. 15 supply ships missing in the past week. 3 command vessels found drifting with their entire bridge crews dead. A fuel depot on Kepler 9 destroyed by sabotage that left no trace of the saboteurs. "They're not fighting like soldiers," he told War Master Thek during their encrypted communication. "They fight like demons from the old stories. They appear from nowhere, kill without honor, and vanish before we can respond." Thek's image flickered on the holographic display, his scarred face twisted with frustration. "They are only 50 beings, General. I have assigned you 100,000 warriors to deal with them. 100,000 warriors who jump at shadows and refuse to patrol alone," Caxmore replied bitterly. 3 entire regiments have requested transfer to other sectors. My forces are terrified of an enemy they cannot see or understand. The fear was justified. Major Chen's teams had spent 2 weeks studying Krek psychology, learning their cultural fears and superstitions. They planted evidence of cursed weapons that would kill anyone who touched them. They left behind recordings of human laughter echoing through abandoned facilities. They spread rumors about shapeshifters who could appear as anyone, anywhere. The Kreks, despite their military might, were psychologically unprepared for psychological warfare. Their culture valued direct confrontation and honorable combat. The idea of enemies who killed from hiding and used fear as a weapon was completely foreign to their thinking. Sergeant Davis watched the results of their work from a concealed observation post on Asteroid Belt Station 7. Krek's patrols now moved in groups of 20 or more, constantly scanning for threats that might not exist. Supply convoys required massive escort fleets that drained resources from frontline operations. Commanders issued contradictory orders as they tried to defend against an enemy they could not predict or counter. "Their entire command structure is falling apart," Davis reported to Colonel Rivera. "They're spending more time protecting themselves than fighting the Morvani." Rivera smiled as he reviewed the tactical situation from his mobile command center. The virus uploaded to the Krek's communication network had spread exactly as planned, causing navigation errors that scattered their fleet across multiple star systems. Supply lines were breaking down as shipping schedules became unreliable. Most importantly, the psychological pressure was beginning to show results. "Phase 3 is approved," Rivera announced to all teams. "Time to show them what human creativity looks like." The escalation began with a single transport ship that appeared in the middle of a Krek's fleet formation. The vessel broadcast distress, signals on all frequencies claiming to be a damaged human cargo hauler requesting assistance. When the Kreks responded with boarding parties, they found the ship empty except for a single message painted on the cargo bay wall. "You started this war, we will finish it." 6 hours later, every ship in the fleet began experiencing system failures. Life support fluctuated. Gravity generators malfunctioned. Weapon systems refused to respond to commands. The failures were not random. They followed patterns that spelled out words in ancient Krek script, messages that referenced their oldest fears and legends. "How did they do this?" War Master Thek demanded, as reports flooded in from across the combat zone. "Unknown, sir. Our technicians cannot find any evidence of tampering or sabotage. The systems simply know things they should not know." The truth was simpler than the Kreks imagined. Corporal Williams had spent months studying their computer architecture through captured equipment and intelligence reports. Human cybersecurity had evolved through constant warfare against other humans who understood how to exploit every weakness. Krek systems were designed to resist direct attacks, not subtle infiltration by opponents who understood the art of digital warfare. But the technical victories were only part of the strategy. Captain Torres had established listening posts throughout the sector that intercepted every Krex communication. His linguists analyzed the conversations, identifying which officers were losing their nerve and which units were reporting the highest stress levels. Target the weak links, Rivera ordered. Make them crack publicly and the fear will spread to the rest. The psychological campaign intensified. Krex officers began receiving personal messages that referenced their families, their fears, their most closely guarded secrets. Supply depot commanders found their private quarters filled with evidence that someone had been living there for weeks without being detected. Patrol ships discovered human personal items scattered throughout their vessels, items that should not have existed in Krex space. Commander Zaxville broke first. A veteran of 15 campaigns, he had survived battles that killed thousands of his subordinates. But when he found a human chess set on his personal desk with a note that read, "Your move," something inside him snapped. "They've been watching me," he reported to his superiors during what became his final communication. "They know everything about me. My quarters, my habits, my sleeping schedule. I can feel them watching me right now." The recording of his breakdown spread through Krex communication networks faster than any official order. Other commanders began reporting similar psychological pressure. The humans seemed to be everywhere and nowhere, striking at targets across multiple star systems simultaneously, while leaving no trace of their presence. Dr. Kim monitored the psychological impact from her position aboard the stealth ship Silence. Her team had spent years developing profiles of Krex military psychology, understanding how their herd animal instincts responded to invisible predators. The results exceeded their most optimistic projections. Enemy unit cohesion is dropping, below combat effectiveness thresholds, she reported to Earth Command. Morale indicators suggest widespread breakdown in command authority. The breakdown became visible when 3 Krex battle groups abandoned their assigned positions without orders, retreating to what they considered safer areas of space. Supply convoys began traveling with escort forces that outnumbered the ships they were protecting. Officers started issuing conflicting commands as they tried to respond to threats that might not exist. Most significantly, the Krex began fighting each other. Units reported suspected human infiltrators among their own forces, leading to arrests and investigations that paralyzed military operations. Soldiers became suspicious of their comrades, convinced that shapeshifters had replaced their friends and officers. War Master Thek watched his invasion force disintegrate with growing desperation. The humans had introduced warfare concepts that his species had never encountered. They fought without honor, struck without warning, and seemed to understand Krex weaknesses better than the Krex understood them themselves. "We need reinforcements," he told the Dominion High Command during an emergency session. "Everything we know about warfare is useless against these humans. You want us to believe that 50 primitives have defeated our greatest invasion force?" "They haven't defeated us," Thek replied carefully. "They've made us defeat ourselves. Every day, more of my forces become convinced that humans are watching them, hunting them, preparing to strike. My soldiers are more afraid of invisible enemies than they are of direct combat." The truth was worse than Thek admitted. Intelligence. Reports suggested that human forces had grown far beyond the original 50 operators, even though no reinforcement ships had been detected. The explanation was simple but terrifying. The humans had recruited local assets from liberated Morvani worlds, teaching them infiltration techniques and psychological warfare tactics. Rivera read the intercepted communications with satisfaction. The Krex were beginning to understand that they faced an enemy unlike any they had encountered before, an enemy that grew stronger through adaptation rather than reinforcement, an enemy that understood the greatest weapon in warfare was not superior firepower but superior thinking. The final phase of the operation was ready to begin. The Krex had learned that humans were dangerous. Now they were about to discover that everything they had experienced so far was just the beginning. The galaxy was about to witness what happened when humanity stopped playing games and started fighting for real. War Master Thek sat alone in his fortified command bunker, on the conquered world of Nova Morvani, surrounded by security systems that monitored every molecule of air that entered his chamber. His personal guard had been tripled after the third assassination attempt, then tripled again when his officers started dying in their sleep, despite being protected by the most advanced security technology in the galaxy. The holographic projector activated without warning, bypassing every security protocol his technicians had installed. The image that appeared was worse than his darkest nightmares. A human male in black combat armor, his face calm and utterly without emotion. War Master Thek, the human said in perfect Krex dialect. I am David Miller, commanding officer of the Terran Ghost Division. We need to talk. Thek's claws extended involuntarily, scraping against the armrests of his command chair. After weeks of fighting invisible enemies, he was finally face to face with one of them. You dare show yourself, Shadow Fighter? I will have you hunted, down and destroyed. You will listen, Miller interrupted, his voice carrying absolute authority. Your fleet is scattered across 12 star systems with compromised navigation computers. Your supply lines have been severed. Your troops are requesting transfers faster than you can process the paperwork. You've lost 38 command vessels, and 62% of your senior officer corps to what you call mysterious accidents. Miller paused, letting the casualty figures sink in. Thek knew the numbers were accurate, more accurate than his own intelligence reports. And this is just the beginning, Miller continued. Everything you've experienced so far has been conducted by 50 human operators using conventional special forces techniques. We've been playing by the rules of civilized warfare, limiting ourselves to non-lethal psychological operations and precision strikes against military targets. Impossible, Thek snarled. You have only 50 warriors. We have 50 operators currently deployed in this sector, yes, but Earth has 40 billion humans, War Master, and if this conflict continues to escalate, we'll stop playing games. Miller's image was replaced by footage that made Thek's blood run cold. Massive orbital bombardment platforms surrounding Earth like a crown of thorns. Planet-cracking missiles that could shatter entire worlds. Antimatter warheads capable of sterilizing star systems. The weapons were beyond anything the Krex had ever developed, representing military technology that treated honor as a luxury that civilized species could not afford. The Morvani are our allies, Miller explained as images of human military might continue to display. They asked for our help, and we answered. But we answered gently, using precision and restraint instead of overwhelming force. We could have ended this war on the first day by glassing every Krex world simultaneously. You would not dare commit such genocide, wouldn't we? Miller's smile was colder than deep space. War Master, your species has studied humanity for 15 years since first contact. What did your analysts conclude about our history? Thek remained silent, but Miller continued anyway. They concluded that humans are the only known species to achieve technological civilization, despite spending 95% of their recorded history at war with themselves. We didn't explore the galaxy because we were peaceful. We explored it because we had become so efficient at warfare that we needed something else to occupy our attention. The display changed to show historical footage from Earth's wars, nuclear weapons, biological plagues, orbital bombardments that turned entire continents into glass, civilizations that had conquered their own world multiple times through superior military doctrine. Every human military doctrine was developed fighting other humans, Miller explained. Species who understood deception, adaptation, and unlimited escalation. We learned to fight opponents who were just as smart, just as creative, and just as ruthless as we were. The galaxy fights like children playing war games. We fight like the apex predators we are. The transmission paused, allowing Thek to absorb the implications. When Miller spoke again, his voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. I'm offering you one chance, War Master. Withdraw from all Morvani territory within 72 hours. Release all prisoners. Pay reparations for the worlds you've damaged. Return to your own space and never threaten our allies again. And if I refuse? Miller's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes that made Thek's survival instincts scream warnings. Then tomorrow morning you'll wake up to find every one of your remaining command officers dead in their beds. Your homeworld's orbital defenses will suffer mysterious malfunctions that leave your core systems defenseless. Your fleets will discover that their navigation computers have been programmed to jump them into the hearts of nearby stars. The War Master felt his courage cracking. You're bluffing. Am I? War Master, in the past month, how many of your secure facilities have my operators visited without being detected? How many of your most protected officers have died despite being surrounded by guards? How many of your computer systems have been compromised by viruses that your best technicians cannot trace or remove? Tech knew the answer, all of them. Every single installation, every protected individual, every supposedly secure system had been touched by human influence. His entire military force had been infiltrated so completely that he no longer trusted his own subordinates. The day after that, Miller continued relentlessly, we stop being subtle. 50,000 human operators will deploy to Krek space using our full military capabilities. No more precision strikes, no more psychological warfare, no more games. We will demonstrate what human warfare looks like when we decide that a species represents a permanent threat to galactic peace. Images flashed across the display showing the full scope of human military power. Stealth fleets that could appear anywhere without warning. Weapons that could crack planets or boil away atmospheres. Most terrifying of all, evidence that human military doctrine included strategies for the complete elimination of hostile species through methods that other civilizations had never imagined. But it won't come to that, Miller said, his voice returning to conversational tones. Because you're going to make the intelligent choice. You're going to realize that conquering the Morvani isn't worth facing the full attention of a species that spent thousands of years perfecting the art of warfare against opponents who understood warfare as well as we do. The transmission ended, leaving Thek alone with his thoughts and his fears. The humans had demonstrated capabilities that redefined his understanding of military power. They had infiltrated systems that should have been impregnable, eliminated, targets that should have been untouchable, and spread fear through his forces more effectively than any weapon. But most terrifying of all was the realization that everything they had done so far was just a demonstration, a sample of what human military thinking could accomplish when limited by restraint and moral considerations. The footage Miller had shown suggested capabilities that could end entire civilizations without breaking the established rules of galactic warfare. 3 hours later, Thek sent the message that ended the war. By order of the Krek's Dominion High Command, all military forces will withdraw from Morvani space immediately. All prisoners will be released unharmed. Reparations will be negotiated through neutral intermediaries. The Krek's Dominion acknowledges that continued conflict with the Terran Republic would be inadvisable. The official announcement cited strategic redeployment and changing tactical priorities. The real reason was never spoken aloud, but every species in the galaxy understood the implications. Humanity had demonstrated military capabilities that exceeded anything previously seen, using methods that other civilizations had never considered. Ambassador Veltar stood before the Galactic Council once more, but this time he delivered thanks, instead of desperate pleas. The Morvani Federation owes its continued existence to our allies from Earth. In 6 weeks, 50 human operators accomplished what our combined forces could not achieve in 3 years of conventional warfare. The chamber was silent as delegates absorbed the strategic implications. The humans had revealed capabilities that would reshape military thinking throughout the galaxy. They had shown that superior numbers and advanced technology meant nothing against opponents who understood the psychology of warfare. Admiral Stone received the mission reports with quiet satisfaction. Operation Ghost Strike had succeeded beyond their most optimistic projections, establishing humanity's reputation as a military power that operated according to principles no other species fully understood. The galaxy had begged Earth for aid, expecting ships and soldiers and conventional military support. Instead, they had received something far more valuable and dangerous, proof that humans were the apex predators of warfare, limited only by their own moral restraints and tactical objectives. Colonel Rivera and his teams returned to Earth as quietly as they had departed. their mission classified at levels that would remain secret for generations. But their work had established humanity's position in the galactic community in ways that no amount of diplomacy or economic power could have achieved. The age of honorable galactic warfare was over. The age of human military doctrine had begun, and every species in the galaxy now understood that Earth's friendship was valuable, but its enmity was something to be avoided at all costs. As Miller had promised, the war ended not with massive battles or formal surrenders, but with the quiet acknowledgement that some enemies were too dangerous to fight. The Kreks withdrew to their own space, the Morvani rebuilt their shattered worlds, and the galaxy learned to view humanity with the respect reserved for apex predators who chose to hunt only when necessary. The stars themselves seemed quieter. After that, as if the universe had learned that there were forces in the darkness that even the darkness feared.